last year when abortion was on the ballot. You know, it not only found voters that would reject that referendum to ban it or actually approve a referendum to try the Constitution, but they changed governors. They had a Democratic governor for the first time in a long time. And so, of course, Trump wants to get away from that, including, you know, you saw that poll in Iowa with Kamala Harris leading in Iowa. That's a state where just over the past few weeks, a very draconian, very restrictive abortion law has snapped into place. That is top of mind for Iowa voters. You know, will Kamala Harris win it? Who knows? But is abortion having an impact? Absolutely. Terry
Moran, we're going to be talking a lot for the next handful of hours, aren't we? Great
sure
to see you.
All
right. Okay, let's turn to the battleground state of Georgia now. The head of elections in Fulton County says an investigation is underway after 2 polling places had to be evacuated briefly after what's being called a series of non-credible bomb threats. Both candidates have barnstormed Georgia over the past few months, with Vice President Harris looking to build on President Joe Biden's 2020 success in the Peach State. Our Faith Abube joins us now live from Atlanta. So what are you hearing from voters today as they cast their ballots, Faith?
Yeah, Kara, a lot of the voters have been speaking with are voting for either themselves, their pocketbooks, or someone. We've heard from voters who say they're voting for their daughters, the future of their children, because of the economic situation currently here in the country. They've said that they are voting for women and their families, talking about reproductive rights. And they're voting, a lot of the things we've heard have had to deal with health care, reproductive rights, or the economy, and of course the same issues that a lot of voters are also going to the polls for. What we do know here in Georgia is that the candidates have spent a lot of time here. They've had back-to-back rallies here, and so a lot of these voters have heard from them. They understand how important this state is. There are 16 electoral college votes that are up for grabs here, so they understand that their votes mean a lot. And so we've seen them come through here at this specific polling location, which is in Fulton County, the most populated county here in the state of Georgia. We actually haven't seen lines of people. There have been a trickle of people that have been coming in and out of here. But the Secretary of State spoke just a little while ago, and he said that even though we're not seeing these lines, the average person is going in and coming out within 4 minutes. The numbers are going up. The number of people who are voting, right now it's about 700,000 in the state of Georgia on Election Day. But of course, we know a historic number of people already early voted, more than 4 million. And they're hoping that turnout will be huge by the end of the day. If this trend continues, they're hoping to see well over 1 million voters here on Election Day. Kira.
Well, what more can you tell us about these threats and the impact they had or didn't have on voting today?
I've been speaking with a number of voters in the last hour or so, and all of the ones that I've spoken with, they haven't even heard of them. However, the ones who have heard of them say that they don't think it's credible, which is what officials have been telling us. They assume that if there is some sort of credible threat, they would see law enforcement parked outside, especially this location here. They haven't seen any of that. And so what officials are saying is there were a series of bomb threats that were called into a few locations across the state. They have investigated them. They don't think that any of them are credible. In fact, the Secretary of State said that they believe that they're coming from Russia, and that Russia picked the wrong Georgia, talking about the country of Georgia. And so right now, they believe that they have a handle on the security issues. They anticipated this living in Georgia 4 years ago and what happened with the votes here and the misinformation that they had to go through and all the issues that they had to work through. They believe that they were prepared for this. They've been talking to the FBI, state partners, law enforcement across the board, and they believe that all of these threats are not credible and that they have a handle on it, and that should not discourage anybody from coming out to vote in these last few hours. Kira.
Faith Abube, thank you so much. Coming up, so-called shy voters could decide this race, but which way are they leaning? That's next.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our combat operations center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions.
Operational nuclear reactor.
So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it.
Not a tear in it.
How important is this label right here, Made in the USA?
Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love this.
Great work.
Hi.
Where are you? Where are you?
Appreciate you.
Thank you, David. Good to meet you.
Ismail? David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Attention all units. Possible elder abduction in progress.
Thursday,
Suspect is on the roof, requesting backup.
2 daring rescues.
My little brother's trapped.
He's about 20 feet down.
I'm scared.
1 new hero.
Someone's got to go down there.
I don't think you're gonna fit this time.
There's someone who can.
I can do it. I'm his big brother.
If we don't try this, we might not get to him in time.
Jack!
911 returns Thursday on ABC and stream on Hulu. Deadpool and Wolverine, streaming November 12th on Disney+.
That's the whole package right there.
It's the biggest R-rated film of all time.
Come again?
It's action-packed,
Us? A team? Next level.
glorious fun, Marvel's biggest triumph,
This is what I'm talking about.
hilarious,
Something funny, bub.
and verified hot on Rotten Tomatoes.
You really are God's perfect idiot, aren't you?
Deadpool and Wolverine, streaming November 12th on Disney+.
Glad you're streaming with us on this election day as we wait for the first results to come in from this historic race. The campaigns are sure to be wondering if they did enough to carry their candidate to the White House. Let's continue the conversation with our political panel. Cassie Smedley, former Deputy Communications Director for the RNC, along with Christina Sinzun Ramirez, our ABC News contributor and president of the progressive group Next Gen America. Cassie, the Harris campaign says it knocked on 100,000 doors in Pennsylvania just this morning. Trump also spent some precious time in solidly blue New York City. Are you worried about Trump's get out the vote efforts?
No, I think both campaigns have put it all out on the field. They've mobilized their volunteers. They've done all their get out the vote efforts. And today it is about getting out to vote, staying in line. You saw in Pennsylvania, one county, they've extended voting until 10 p.m. to accommodate everyone in line. So stay in line. And that's the key here, to make sure that everybody who wants to cast their vote today can cast their vote today, because it is coming out to voting day turnout. And as we've been talking about all day long, nobody knows how it's going to go today.
That's true. I mean, just when you thought you could maybe make a prediction or two, looking at the polls, forget about it. Things are changing because of the ground game. Christina, some Democrats are worried that Harris hasn't done enough to mobilize the Democratic base because of her stance on the Israel-Hamas war. What do you say?
You know, I work with young people across the country, and we saw earlier in the spring that young people did have a different position than the Biden administration on this issue. But when you got down to it and asked young people what were the issues they were going to vote for, it was on abortion, climate change, and the economy. And so overwhelmingly, we're seeing positive support for Harris. And like you just said, the Democrats and Harris have a really strong ground game. And when you're talking about an election that's this close, that's what ultimately matters. Can you get your base? Can you get your people to the polls? And they have spent the time, money, and built a massive volunteer and paid staff operation to get out Democrats in these key states.
Right. And Cassie, the gender gap, let's talk about this. Men break hard for Trump, but even more women break for Harris. Does this all come down to the so-called shy voters, you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not surprising that you're seeing more women trend Democrat, more men trend Republican. That's pretty typical every election season, especially in recent years. But I do think not just the shy voters. I've gotten any number of texts today saying the quiet suburban mom vote. It feels strong. It feels good. There was a lot of winking and nodding for Republicans at the voting booths today, counter to that ad that was going viral from the Harris campaign. But you mentioned young men, and I think that's one area, that's one voting block that may be a big surprise this election. You count on the older, white, college-educated men. Everybody likes to talk about them. But these young men, these 18 to 24-year-olds, these guys,
Cassie, we lost your audio. Not sure what happened. Christina, do we still have you? Okay, I think we lost both Christina and Cassie. I apologize for that. All right, Cassie, Christina, we'll try to get you both back. Apologize, little gremlins in the technical side of things. Coming up, we hope to have more news for you. The candidates are making their closing arguments. Now, Mother Nature has something to say. We're going to tell you about the severe storms that could impact the vote in just about 2 minutes.
Friday night, a firefighter gunned down in his own driveway. 2020 takes you inside a true crime as it unfolds.
It's not supposed to be this way.
Never before seen video.
My mom, she was freaking out.
Exclusive interviews.
Every step was shocking.
And the twists and turns.
Just when you thought you heard the most shocking part,
you'll never see coming.
there was another part.
Fire and Vice. The all-new 2020, Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
3, 2, 1.
It's a 24/7 life together.
It's not about the fear or the risk. It's about the love of flying. 3, 2, 1.
We shared a strange, unusual experience, but seeing you here tonight just opens my heart up again.
Welcome to the very first ever Golden Bachelorette Men Tell All.
I didn't expect to be that famous.
I love these guys. They're friends for life. We all came looking for love with Joan, but we got this, which is incredible, really.
Let's do it. My name is Luke Bryan, and with the help of today's biggest stars, we're going to explore everything country.
Let's go! Going out on stage live, watching the crowd react. It's magical.
And once you've been there, it is a drug.
When you got kids, it's hard to write about anything else.
I told my fans everything.
When everybody brings their story, it really becomes something special.
Well, millions of you have already cast your votes on this election day, but if you still plan to head to the polls anywhere from the Great Lakes to the Gulf Coast, make sure you bring an umbrella. ABC meteorologist Samara Theodore is here with your election day forecast. So, Samara, what are you watching for right now?
Okay, so let's talk about those trouble spots for our Election Day forecast. First, I want to talk about the Rockies. It's there where over the next 48 hours, we could see anywhere from 2 to 3 feet of snow. That includes places like Breckenridge, Telluride, down to northern New Mexico as well, up in Idaho. Then, if you see these raindrops fall and you live anywhere in this area from Minneapolis into Indiana, the Ohio Valley, down to the Mississippi River, that's where we have the threat for thunderstorms. From southern Indiana to Louisiana, we could actually see flash flooding, 2 to 4 inches of rain falling very quickly in a short amount of time. So what does this mean? That means that if you live in the southeast, up into the Great Lakes, make sure you have the umbrella handy, maybe even a poncho. You're going to be standing outside in the rain. For the East Coast, it's a pretty quiet story, but it's an interesting one. Warm. Summer-like temperatures are starting to pop up, record-breaking highs possible as we continue through the day. And then by tomorrow, we anticipate that summer-like heat to continue along the I-95 corridor from New York City to Philadelphia, right on into our nation's capital tomorrow in the low 80s. And one thing I'll leave you with, on the West Coast, places like California, it may be dry, but winds are picking up both today and tomorrow, and that could lead to an elevated risk for wildfire threats. Back to you.
All right, Samara, thank you. So we are getting into the final hours of voting, as you know, as some counties and states are set to start counting their first ballots in less than 3 hours. Let's get straight to our KBC reporter, Sid Garcia. He's on the ground there in L.A. So what's the sense you get from voters there? Any still undecided?
Actually, no, the folks we had a chance to talk to, by the way, we're coming to you live from the L.A. County Registrar's office in Norwalk in suburban Los Angeles. Kira, you know exactly where we are. Everybody wanted to come in today and cast their ballot. They knew exactly who they wanted to vote for. They also were talking to us about the fact that there are also a number of propositions that will directly affect their daily lives depending on how, if they pass or not. According to the numbers here in LA County, about a third of registered voters, or 1.7 million, have already cast their ballots. One of the big statewide races here is for the United States Senate seat. Representative Adam Schiff is going up against former Dodger great Steve Garvey. Adam Schiff is leading in the polls, but then again, the polls here close at 8 o'clock Pacific time. Also, controversial LA District Attorney George Gascon is running for his second term. He's trailing in the polls, so he is fighting for his political life as well. Everybody we had a chance to talk to this morning, Kira, before they cast their ballot and after they cast their ballot, they wanted to do it in person because for them it felt like they were doing their civic duty and wanted to go through the process. But again, about 43%, according to one UC Berkeley poll, 43% either mailed it in or dropped it off early. And that's why here in LA County, you've got 1.7, or about a third of the voters here in the county already casting their ballots here at the registrar's office. It is busy. In Compton, where we were, it is busy. It's a huge election, but as I mentioned earlier, you're not only voting for president here in Southern California, but there are a number of statewide propositions that include rent control, what to do with prisoners as far as putting them to work, and also we've got an LA County District Attorney's race that's going on. And then again, do people want a former Dodger great to represent them in the U.S. Senate, or do they want the veteran Congressman Adam Schiff to have that seat? Live in Los Angeles, I'm Sid Garcia. Let's send it back to you in New York, Kira.
Hey, Sid, don't go too far. It's so funny every time you mention Steve Garvey, and you and I go back a long time, just remembering what a great baseball player he was. It's pretty wild to see him running now for a position, but no surprise. I mean, fans loved him as a baseball player, that's for sure. I'm curious because I know you've been covering a lot of ground, and yes, we have covered many stories there outside the registrar. What are the biggest issues you think driving the locals there to the polls today?
I have to be honest with you. I think it's the presidential race. Do we elect the first female president, or does former President Donald J. Trump get a second term? I think that's what's really driving a lot of people to the polls, because they see they were using this word, historic. It could very well be. There are some other factors as well, but I think the big one here for us is the presidential race. And then, as you mentioned, the U.S. Senate race, because that affects all of us here in the state of California. Adam Schiff is a very, very recognizable name. Steve Garvey, for those of us here in Southern California, I'm old enough to remember going to the ballpark to cheer him on, but he's a Southern California icon. Will that translate to a statewide office? He's running as a Republican. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think the presidential race is what's getting people out to vote, and then all the propositions that affect them, that too. But I think everybody here wants to cast their ballot for the next president of the United States.
Sid Garcia, great to see you. Thanks so much, Sid. Coming up, there are many ways to the White House. We are breaking down the map and the math. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Yo, partner.
We're not partners. I'm the detective and you are the consultant. I see you brought your baby to a crime scene.
She is just spectating.
You're a single mom with 3 kids pretending to be a cop.
I am not pretending. I spot things that detectives miss. Still think my theory's flimsy?
That big brain of hers is going to help us close a lot of cases.
I'm just out here super copping.
High Potential, all new next Tuesday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
A Hollywood studio want us to make a movie of our podcast.
It's a fabulous cast.
Action. I'm nervous playing you. The fearlessness, the complexity.
Oh, stop. Unless you had more to say.
I don't need an algorithm to tell me that this is box office gold.
Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and for bundle subscribers on Disney+.
True natural beauty, untouched, one of the last of its kind. But this comes at a cost. 5 countries, 5 incredible real stories of adventure, danger,
We have to go.
and deceit. These are the last lands, the national parks around the world that have to be saved.
Hey, good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America.
Are you ready? They are ready. Covering the biggest events in the country right now.
There's a lot going on here this morning.
You don't just see it, you feel it.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in too.
I'll be here.
I am here and so happy.
I'm in.
I'm in too.
Michael, George, Claire,
Ginger.
Took a lot to get here, and now we're actually getting this live picture. This is a DNC headquarters here in our nation's capital. Now the question is, who's she talking to on the phone? Let's see if we can figure it out. Can we listen in for a minute?
Very much. You know, it's so important that everybody participates, and I thank you, because I'm sure you got a lot of other things you could be doing, but taking the time to vote really does make a difference. So thank you for that. And you enjoy your day, okay?
Madam President!
All right, this is a real phone bank. Get back to making calls. Please, please, please. We got voters to still get out.
I can tell everybody. Jennifer, it's Kamala Harris. How are you? I am well. I just wanted to call to check in and make sure you know where you can go vote today if you haven't already. Have you voted yet? Oh, thank you. Thank you so very much. And thank you for just being active and participating in this very, very important process. It's the foundation for our democracy, but we can't do it without people like you. Just knowing our voice. Oh, good. What's your name?
Thank you so much.
Sage? Hi, it's Kamala Harris. I can't wait for you to grow 10 years more. But,
So we really appreciate what you're doing.
oh, you know what? IEPs are so important. We have so much work to do to just keep reinforcing the Department of Education and getting all the resources there. And Sage, I can tell you're really smart and you're working really hard, and I'm counting on you, okay? Because you are still a leader at every age that you are. At 8 years old, that's a serious leadership. So you're in 3rd grade? Yeah. Second grade?
All right, hey, that's all good news to me. I'll take it.
Okay,
That sounds great.
Okay, Sage? Okay. I apologize. Okay, sweetheart. And thank you. Thanks for the time, and please take care, okay?
Hey, you're the Grim Reaper. That's good. All right. Oh, that's right. Go blue, go blue. All right.
Can you hear me now? Your vote and everyone behind you so you can get through it.
Okay, go ahead.
Take it to Galen. All right, so this is what happens. You know, the cameras clearly are following all the candidates right now on Election Day. And this is the press corps that's been able to follow the vice president into the DNC headquarters here in our nation's capital. And when you're a volunteer, sometimes you get lucky. Clearly here, the candidate is Vice President Kamala Harris. She walked into where all the volunteers are, and volunteers are just handing her the cell phone saying, oh, here's my mom, here's my daughter, here's my cousin, here's my friend. And she's just basically going from from phone to phone saying hello and thanking folks for their vote and for their support. But these are all of Kamala Harris's supporters, volunteers, working the phones, getting folks out to the polls. And you even heard one of the volunteers say, okay, let's let her get off the phone so we can get out there and start knocking on doors and get people to go and vote. So just one of those raw moments that we're able to sort of look into, give you a live look on what the vice president is doing right now in our nation's capital, pushing for every final vote and thanking everyone that has voted for her thus far. All right, let's continue to focus now on the 7 battleground states that will actually decide this election. 538 podcast host Galen Druk joining me now to break it all down. I guess before I get to question number 1, Galen, it is pretty cool when you get this sort of inside look, and hopefully we'll get the same thing with former President Trump, too. He's at Mar-a-Lago. Maybe there'll be an opportunity. I know he's going to be holding a number of events in the area where cameras will be able to kind of zero in on what he's doing. But that was sort of a raw look at the VP there, just kind of thanking folks via phone and in the room for volunteering for her.
Yeah, Kira, look, I think this is a huge moment for the nation and for voters, but this is obviously also a big moment for the candidates themselves and a very personal one. You know, in Harris's circumstance, she's only been running for a bit over 100 days. In Trump's circumstance, he's been running in some sense for 9 years, but more specifically for this race, something more like 2 years. And so it's all coming down to this moment and how they spend those final hours, whether it's calling volunteers, with family, in prayer, maybe eating some food, getting ready for the big night, however that is. That's what they're going to be doing in the coming hours because, look, it is not too long before polls start to close.
So let's talk about what's the most likely path to victory for both candidates. Give us, both options here.
Kira, first I want to say, on any election night, we should expect the unexpected. So far, the picture that we have of this race is largely based on pre-election polling. And we know that the average error in presidential election polls is 4 points. So that means that either candidate could actually end up sweeping all of the battleground states. That's certainly not out of the question. But if we're just going off of where the candidates are doing best in the battleground states currently, the best pathway for Trump is through the Sun Belt, picking up Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, and then taking one of those blue wall states, whether it's Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Michigan. It looks closest right now in Pennsylvania, but I should remind folks that we've seen significantly larger than average polling error in Wisconsin over the past couple election cycles. I mean, close to 8 or 9 points of error in the last cycle in Wisconsin. So maybe that ends up being one that Trump could pull off. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, what she really needs to do, based on the polling today that we have, is keep those blue wall states intact. Keep a lead in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and then, of course, also win Nevada's 2nd congressional district. Because, look, she needs that 2nd congressional district, that one electoral college vote, to get her to 270 if she wins those 3 upper Midwestern states.
538 podcast host Galen Druk. Galen, so glad we have you along for the ride today. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
There's several key issues sending voters to the polls. Immigration, of course, being one of them. Our Maria Villarreal has been reporting on the border, not just for the election, but for years. She joins us now from Henderson, Nevada. Definitely one of the most contentious issues, an important issue. And the former president, polls pretty well on this, Maria. What are you hearing from voters there in Nevada? And what's driving them to the polls?
Well, Kara, we obviously are not at the border right now, but I have been all over Clark County. We started at Allegiant Stadium this morning, which is the home of the NFL team, the Raiders, right? We saw quick movement in voters that were there to vote for a historic time, right, getting into that stadium. And now we are at the busiest location here in Las Vegas, in the Henderson area. This is the Galleria Mall, and let me tell you, it is a mall. It is a full functioning deal. I mean, we've got stores in the back of me, a DJ that is actually keeping people busy and entertained. Wetzel's Pretzels is right over my shoulder. And then, of course, you actually see the voting happening behind me. It's taking about an hour for people to get through this particular line. It is so far the longest one here. But listen, people are entertained, and as they are in line, we've been able to talk to them. And for them, the issues are here, at least in this area, are the economy, the cost of living, making an affordable wage, and on top of that, then, yes, the immigration as well. But that's not as high as some of the other issues that I just mentioned.
So the future of the border could go in two different directions depending on who is sent to the White House. So let's talk about what's at stake, Maria.
You know, I think you're right. This could go two completely different ways. When we talk about Trump and his policies along the border, we're looking at some very strong policies that he wants to implement, especially when he talks about mass deportation and the consequences of trafficking. I mean, at one point, he's even talked about giving someone life sentences or the death penalty if they traffic, you know, in young children. On the other end of it, we are seeing, you know, the Harris campaign talk about immigration as a total kind of, you know, overhaul, the idea of bringing in a more legal pathways to citizenship, and also focusing a little bit more on that border security bill that was torpedoed last December, trying to get that in place, which means more resources, logistics for the agents in the field that are having to deal with this issue.
What sticks out to you from the messaging of both campaigns?
You know, specifically here in Nevada, I think both candidates have realized two things. One, the economy is most important to people here. Having a living wage and figuring out how to deal with inflation no matter where it is, they realize that is extremely important to these residents in Nevada, because this is a service-driven, tourism-driven state, right? On top of that, I think, you know, what we've heard a lot here is a push to gain the Latino vote in Nevada. 1 in 5 voters are Latinos here. It has made a huge difference. We've seen Kamala spend millions of dollars on Spanish radio ads. We just got off the phone a few minutes ago with the GOP representatives here. They've talked a lot about having to change the strategy and how they approach Latinos, going door to door, knocking with them, bringing on people who can speak Spanish to have those conversations, and building relationships from the ground up by going into small businesses and hoping and actually trying to put together more intimate conversations with this particular group. They're also doing that with, you know, a number of other diverse communities as well. So definitely, you know, reaching out to these communities, to these people, to these voters has become a huge trigger point for both campaigns.
All right, Maria Villarreal, appreciate you. We'll check in with you there in Henderson, Nevada, of course, as the day continues. We want to take you now to the battleground state of Arizona. Vice President Harris looking to build on President Biden's numbers there from 4 years ago when he became the first Democrat to win that state since 1996. Arizona voters will also choose a new senator tonight. Our Elizabeth Schulze joins us now from Phoenix with more on this relatively new battleground. Elizabeth, what do we know about the timeline for results in Arizona?
It's not looking like we're going to know for a while, Kira. So when you think about Arizona, you're right, a new-ish battleground. And really the path here to victory in Arizona does come through where we are right now, which is Maricopa County. It's actually the 4th biggest county in the U.S. and has been growing massively in size. When they say that they're going to take a while to count the votes here, they are not joking. We talked to the Secretary of State earlier today. We said, what are you looking at as far as when we might know these results, Kira? He said, expect 10 to 13 days. Maybe even longer than that. And when we asked the deputy elections director here why this process takes so long, she says part of it is that it is painstakingly meticulous. They want to make sure that there's transparency as they count every single vote. Take a listen.
The eyes of the world are on us because our votes are so difficult, because our races are so difficult to call. We want to make sure that we're able to provide people with that transparency and faith in the system.
That means is that even after some of the ballots are brought here, you're going to have a Democrat and a Republican typically going over the entire process, unsealing them, looking at the signatures, making the signatures match, and then actually counting and tabulating them. They say, going to get an early batch of results around 8 o'clock local here, 10 o'clock Eastern tonight, but otherwise it's just going to keep counting as the days goes on, Kira.
Well, what are we seeing there in terms of security, and have there been any issues so far?
Okay, so far, running smoothly according to the Secretary of State. But when you think about this county, one of the reasons it's so much on the map, just from people's perspective, is that it became really a hotbed for some of those election conspiracy theories, for security threats. There were protests all the way up until that door. Protesters came up to here in the days after the election, Trump supporters, election deniers who said they did not believe those results. So what we've seen is we're actually in this kind of secure area right now, Kira. There's an iron fence all around us. There's a second fence on the perimeter of this building. They are making sure that anyone who wants to protest can do so, but they have to stay outside of that perimeter so that anyone who's working inside feels safe, trying to walk that really fine line of making sure that workers who are inside can do everything they need to do to tabulate those ballots 24/7, while also giving people the right to protest, making sure people want to be out there if they want to do that. They say they're hoping it doesn't look like what it did in 2020, Kira.
Yeah, let's hope. Elizabeth Schulze in Phoenix for us. Thanks, Elizabeth. Up next, Capitol Police arrest a man armed with a torch and a flare gun. Details just coming in and coming right up.
Look at all these happy wedding guests.
I'm getting married.
Cap, are you crying?
I'm a sucker for love.
All of this is a lie. You have to help me. I need you to come with me right now.
I just don't know what to do.
Code Alpha.
This is all my fault.
Right now, votes are being counted, and tomorrow, GMA is right there with the morning's first news and
breaking developments from our powerhouse political team.
Tomorrow morning,
when the story matters most.
A special edition of Good Morning America with the election coverage you need.
What's good to watch, read? Where can I get a great deal on what I'm just dying to buy? Oh, it's all right here. GMA Life. Get the latest celebrity buzz, deals and steals, and the coolest lifestyle tips from GMA.
I love that so much.
Streaming weekends on ABC News Live.
After almost 20 years of flicks, kicks, and tricks,
we're celebrating the 500th episode.
33 seasons, 394 stars, 124 Emmy nominations.
Stunning performance. I loved it!
And more moves than we can count.
Season 33 is hot.
Now we are in business.
Dancing's 500th episode, live next Tuesday on ABC and Disney+, next day on Hulu.
Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, ABC News. Make it your daily first listen.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Wherever you get your podcasts, start here.
Glad you are streaming with us. It's Election Day, and we are following a developing story right here in our nation's capital. Apparently, the Capitol Police say they arrested a man at the Capitol building today. He was carrying a flare gun and a torch. Let's get to our senior correspondent, Devin Dwyer, for more on the story. Devin, what do we know?
Yeah, Kira, this was serious enough an incident that the police have closed down now the Capitol for tourists. Congress is out, as you know. They're campaigning today, so the lawmakers are not here. But this is a major incident, it would seem. They have now closed the building, canceled tours for today, and this is what we know. The police said a man going through a screening checkpoint there with the metal detectors smelled like fuel. He was also obtained with a torch and a flare gun. At that time, he was arrested. Police Chief Tom Manger says that the man was arrested with a pile of papers he intended to deliver to Congress. They're still going through those papers right now. But this comes at a time when the Capitol is surrounded in fencing. Kira, you know this town. It is already in lockdown. Buildings are being boarded up. So they are taking no chances right now at this critical time and the police chief there at Capitol Hill said as they continue to investigate this, they remain on high alert, and those security measures up there on the Capitol will stay in place through the inauguration into January. So this is sort of a first red flag that that they caught something potentially suspicious today at the Capitol.
So do we know anything about this man's possible intentions?
Yeah, reporters have asked Police Chief Tom Manger, he's the head of the Capitol Police, what they know about that. They're still starting to go through those papers. The chief did say he had quite a few of them. You know, there is a track record in this town, Kira, around big political events and at the major landmarks of people with sometimes mental health issues, other times grievances, going there to conduct protests, sometimes violently. And there have been cases of self-immolation. Just a month ago in front of the White House, a man lit himself on fire and later died. We do know that just back in February at the Israeli embassy up the street, a U.S. Air Force airman lit himself on fire as part of a protest there and later died. So these things do happen. We don't know if this man intended to light himself on fire, but police say, again, taking no chances at the Capitol, and that Capitol Visitor Center at this hour is still shut down. Kira?
We'll track it. Senior correspondent Devin Dwyer. Appreciate you, Devin.
You bet.
Coming up, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fires his defense minister. We've got all the details next.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions.
Operational nuclear reactor.
So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it.
Not a tear in it.
How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love this.
Great work.
Hi.
Where are you? Where are you?
Appreciate you.
Thank you, David. Good to meet you. Ismail? David.
David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Davers and I are cousins. Our grandma is from here, so Dave arranged for us to join this Polish tour with you people.
A Real Pain is one of the best films of the year.
We're not at the right station.
And you didn't wake me up.
Oh, you're having such a good nap, dude.
It's like you're on a tour
Sorry,
group with
yeah, I know. I just didn't have the heart to wake you up.
Kieran Culkin is a force of nature.
Has he always been like this?
I love him, and I hate him.
What the?
And I want to be him.
It's a masterpiece of a movie.
Thank you so much, man.
A Real Pain, written and directed by Jesse Eisenberg. Rated R.
Wednesday night.
Oh my God.
We're back with the biggest and best season yet.
Oh my God! Look at John! The question is,
what would you do?
Now on Wednesday nights on ABC. Election night, this is where America turns for answers. ABC, Election Night.
Reporting from the aftermath of those deadly storms in downtown Houston, I'm Mireya Villarreal. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming with ABC News Live.
So glad you're streaming with us. Some other top headlines we're following for you this hour on Election Day. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has apparently fired his popular defense minister, Yoav Gallant. The two have repeatedly been at odds throughout the war in Gaza. A previous attempt to fire Gallant in March of last year sparked a lot of protests against Netanyahu. Hostage families blasted the move, calling it another effort to torpedo a hostage deal. And some sad news to report. Home Depot co-founder and billionaire philanthropist Bernie Marcus has passed away at the age of 95. He was in his home in Boca Raton, Florida, surrounded by family. He was Home Depot CEO as it saw massive growth during its first 2 decades and was chairman of the board until his retirement in 2002. The news never stops. I'm Kira Phillips. So glad you're streaming with us. A lot more news up next as your live coverage on this Election Day 2024 continues. We are at polling stations across the country. This live picture coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Whenever, wherever.
wherever news breaks. It's so important to always remember that lives are changed. Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas, Edinburgh, Scotland. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw. We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City. Getting you behind the stories as they happen. ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights wherever you stream your news. Only on ABC News Live.
3, 2, 1.
It's a 24/7 life together.
It's not about the fear or the risk. It's about the love of flying. 3, 2, 1.
Friday night, a firefighter gunned down in his own driveway. 2020 takes you inside a true crime as it unfolds.
It's not supposed to be this way.
Never before seen video.
My mom, she was freaking out.
Exclusive interviews.
Every step was shocking.
And the twists and turns.
Just when you thought you heard the most shocking part,
you'll never see coming.
there was another part.
Fire and Vice. The all-new 2020, Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families.
On the ground in Ukraine.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Reporting from the path of Hurricane Milton in Sarasota, Florida, I'm Victor Okendo. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live. Hey, good morning, America.
Good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America.
Good morning, America.
Every day of your life.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kana Whitworth here in Los Angeles, and this is ABC News Live special coverage of the 2024 election. Voters in the eastern United States casting their final ballots as we wait for the first polls to close just about 2 hours from now. We're also expecting our first batch of exit polling data around 5 p.m. Eastern for a snapshot of what voters are thinking, and we will bring that to you live as soon as it happens. Now, Donald Trump watching the results roll in tonight at his Mar-a-Lago Golf Club in Florida. Vice President Harris at her alma mater, Howard University in D.C. The vice president thanking campaign staffers just a short time ago at the Democratic Party headquarters. The former president also casting his ballot earlier today. He visited his campaign headquarters as well in West Palm Beach, acknowledging it was too early to congratulate. Now, polls from ABC News and others have all shown this race is neck and neck nationally, but of course, it will likely all come down to those 7 critical swing states. Now, we have reporters in the battlegrounds all across this country, but we begin here with our ABC News senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, who's live at Harris headquarters at Howard University, along with ABC News' Jay O'Brien outside Trump headquarters at Mar-a-Lago. A pleasure to have you both here with us. And Selena, tell us about this moment, right? If Harris wins, certainly history will be made in many ways, and talk about her choice there in Howard University.
Exactly, Kana. If Harris is elected president, she would be making history in more ways than one. Of course, the first woman, the first black woman, South Asian woman. But what's interesting is that throughout her campaign, Kana, she has not really leaned into her race or her identity. When she's talked about her parents, it's really been to emphasize that she's the daughter of immigrants, a middle-class upbringing. She often talks about how she remembers how hard her mother worked to save to buy their first home. Instead, she's chosen to lean into her record, especially as a tough prosecutor who's gone after organized crime, transnational gangs, because her campaign believes that the best way to make the pitch to American voters is to lean into why she believes she's the best person to do the job and what her plan would be for the American people. But Kana, it is symbolic that she's choosing to be at Howard University tonight. She has talked about how her alma mater has shaped her most formative years. This is a historically black college, and I just want to read to you what she said before about Howard. She said that her experience here taught her that while you will often find you're the only one in the room who looks like you, you must remember you are never alone. And Kana, while the vice president has rarely talked about her gender out on the campaign trail, the polls show a very stark gender divide, with far more women coming out to vote for Harris.
And Jay, on that note, we know that Trump really tried to close that gender gap, right? Especially with those female voters in this final stretch. Jay, is there any sense from the Trump campaign whether they feel like their messaging here in the final days was effective?
They feel that their messaging was effective, but their messaging, Kana, was really to the base. You saw Donald Trump in these last few days and hours of this campaign really reach out to his base, try to get out the vote that way, try to drive out what we call low propensity voters, particularly when it comes to the Trump campaign, young white men who might be ideologically aligned with Donald Trump, but might not be those who cast a ballot in 2020 if they were even old enough to cast a ballot, and they might have been on the fence about casting a ballot here in 2024. We've seen the Trump campaign in the final days and weeks and really hours of this campaign go after that demographic hard. Demographics we have not seen them really reach out to. Moderates, independent voters, even in the Republican Party, what we call those Nikki Haley type voters who were on the fence about Donald Trump. And just to give you a sense of how big of a chunk that voting bloc is, let's take a state like Pennsylvania. Must-win state for both campaigns, neck and neck in every single polling. In Pennsylvania, in the primaries, after Nikki Haley dropped out, I'll look at the numbers directly, Nikki Haley got about 158,000 votes in that state. Joe Biden won Pennsylvania, Kana, by about 80,000 votes. It's unclear if every single Nikki Haley voter would break for Donald Trump, but certainly, as Selena and you have noted, the Harris campaign has gone after those Nikki Haley, those moderate Republican voters, strong in the last few weeks of this race. It's just unclear if that's going to be enough to get them to break with their own party.
All right, that is very interesting. Selena and Jay, our thanks to both of you. And what a day it certainly is. We want to take a close now look at voters in Arizona. This is a state where voters will decide if the right to abortion access should be enshrined in Arizona's constitution. It's one of 10 states with a ballot initiative to expand reproductive rights. So I want to bring in ABC News' Elizabeth Schulze, who is joining me live now from Phoenix. Elizabeth, glad to have you here with us. And again, we have talked a little bit about where you're at, a state that came close to a near total ban on abortion earlier this year. So, Elizabeth, what is in Arizona's ballot initiative here, and what are you hearing about it from voters on the ground?
And Kana, you guys were talking in the last segment about how access to abortion and broadly reproductive rights is a focus of both of these campaigns, but the Harris campaign especially is hoping that that will drive turnout, especially when you think about where we are here. When Maricopa County, the fourth biggest county in the country, and a lot of this race will come down to suburban women in the suburbs of Phoenix here. So what we are hearing from the campaigns and from voters is that this is a driving issue. They're looking at this ballot measure, as you say, one of 10 states with abortion directly on the ballot. And what this would do is enshrine the right to an abortion in the Constitution. Essentially, it would get rid of the current 15-week ban with some restrictions in Arizona, expand access to abortion. And we had a chance to talk to the Democratic chair of the GOP chair, or I'm sorry, the Democratic chair here in Arizona of the party. She talked about how this is a driving issue for voters and how in every election since the end of Roe v. Wade, when abortion has been on the ballot, the abortion rights position has won. Take a listen.
When abortion's on the ballot, we saw this across the entire country. When it's on the ballot, it's really good for Democrats. I think people understand that since Roe fell, we now have less rights. We've moved backwards, and people don't want that.
Which it looks like it will, according to the polls and the campaigns we're talking to. A lot of the voters that organizers here we're talking to say that when they knock on doors, when they go and canvass about this proposition, they hear from independents and Republicans in Arizona who are going to vote to expand abortion rights, but they're still planning to vote for former President Trump. Kana.
And Elizabeth, what can you tell us about the early votes that we've already seen so far and how the campaigns are really feeling on the ground about it?
We've seen record early vote here so far. We had an update from the Secretary of State earlier. We asked him, what are you expecting when it comes to these numbers? And he said, the votes are still coming in. There are some lines outside of polling places here. And part of the reason for that, Kana, is that the ballot here is longer than it's been in almost 20 years, 2 pages front to back. So it's taking some people a little bit longer to fill out those ballots, and also that will mean it takes longer to count and tabulate those ballots. Where we are is the place where 60% of all of Arizona's votes are tabulated, and they say that it will take some time to get those results processed. They're giving us a timeline about 10 to 13 days, but the Secretary of State told me could be a little bit longer than that, just on the length of time and the focus on making sure that they get every vote counted, but they also do this right and to make sure that it's clear and transparent all throughout the process, Kana.
Certainly everyone reeling and concerned after 2020. Elizabeth Schulze, thank you so much for being here with us. And we have a lot more special coverage ahead of Election Night in America. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris both looking to win the White House, each with very different versions for our nation's future. Stay with us.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions.
Operational nuclear reactor.
So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it.
Not a tear in it.
How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love this.
Great work.
Hi.
Where are you? Where are you?
Appreciate you.
Thank you, David. Good to meet you.
Ismail, David.
David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
I watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Attention all units. Possible elder abduction in progress.
Thursday.
Suspect is on the roof, requesting backup.
2 daring rescues.
My little brother's trapped.
He's about 20 feet down.
I'm scared.
1 new hero.
Someone's got to go down there.
I don't think you're going to fit this time.
There's someone who can.
I can do it. I'm his big brother.
If we don't try this, we might not get to him in time.
Jack!
911 returns Thursday on ABC and stream on Hulu. Deadpool and Wolverine. Stream November 12th on Disney+.
That's the whole package right there.
It's the biggest R-rated film of all time.
Come again?
It's action-packed.
Us? A team? Next level.
Glorious fun. Marvel's biggest triumph.
This is what I'm talking about.
Hilarious.
Something funny, Bob?
And verified hot on Rotten Tomatoes.
You really are God's perfect idiot, aren't you?
Deadpool and Wolverine. Streaming November 12th on Disney+.
And welcome back to our ABC News special election coverage as we continue to monitor this incredibly close race. I want to bring in my panel here, ABC News contributor and president of Next Gen America, Cristina Cincin-Ramirez, and former Trump White House Deputy Director of Communications, Roma Daravi. Ladies, so glad to have you here with us. And look, Cristina, you know that I always love to talk to you about what you're hearing from young people. That's certainly part of what you do at Next Gen America. But what are you hearing in terms of the issues that they are expressing to you? And where does Kamala Harris fall on these issues? Is she polling well in some of them? Because they don't seem to be the same issues that we see of high importance nationally.
Yeah, I mean, you have young voters now have become an incredibly important voting bloc for Democrats. And some of their issues are different. While the economy still ranks high for them, you don't see immigration come up as a top issue for young people, but you do see abortion, a top issue for young women. And of course, Harris is dominating with women voters and especially young female voters. And I can tell you when I go out and ask, the first question I ask young people when they're at our table learning about who to vote for, what's on the ballot, why are you voting this election? For young women, it is always nearly abortion or climate change. And for young men, you know, a lot of them say the economy, and some of them say abortion as well, that they feel like watching those they love and their friends have their rights taken back 50 years is something that is motivating them this election.
And Roma, what about your perspective here from young people? I kind of feel like the ground game that we're learning about from the Trump campaign hasn't been as public as perhaps the ground game from Kamala Harris. And we know that he's leaning in with Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, to try to get that message out to young voters, young Republicans in particular. What are some of their top issues?
Yeah, the ground game with President Trump's campaign is very strong, particularly in the state of Pennsylvania. You have Early Vote Action, which is Scott Pressler's PAC that is focused on young voters in Pennsylvania. He's been at Penn State many times, tailgating, registering new voters, and the line goes all the way around the stadium in order to talk to them about the issues. And the issues do range from everything that the average voter cares about, including the election and immigration. You know, earlier this year, we had the unfortunate incident of a murder of a young nursing student, Laken Riley, in Georgia, on Georgia's campus. So it certainly is something, immigration, that is hitting young students, young Americans across the country firsthand. And it's something that's affecting them every single day as they think about going to school and safety on their school campuses. So I do believe that the issues are consistent across demographics in terms of age and also race. So you'll see a variety of people that are coming out this election cycle. And one thing that's very exciting is the enthusiasm that we're seeing at the polls today. The lines are very similar to the lines that I've seen outside of the Trump campaign rallies. So I have to say it's encouraging to see the amount of Americans that are coming out to express their civic duty and make their voices heard this election.
Certainly is. And Christina, I'm also curious as to your thoughts on kind of the closing messages here. We know that Vice President Harris spent a lot of time in Pennsylvania. I mean, all of her time really actually in Pennsylvania yesterday, right? We saw a video of her door knocking late last night. But there's been some criticisms here that in these final weeks, she wasn't really able to articulate her message in terms of policy enough to sway some of these voters and win in the margins.
Well, what I heard from her speech last night, you know, some core lines that really stuck out with me is that she wasn't going to come in and be a president stewing over an enemies list, but a to-do list for the American people. Her speech really talked about wanting to address the needs of the middle class, wanting to build a strong economy, wanting to protect basic rights like abortion and tackle the climate crisis. And then you had Donald Trump's speech, which were winding 2 hours spewing of vitriol, division, confusion, talking about people he wanted to go after the last few days. So what we've seen from the Harris campaign, I think, is a very disciplined campaign. We always knew that this election was going to be close. She's had only 3 months, and wow, has she built an incredible campaign in that time period and really come back from behind as the underdog. And so we are seeing a surge of Democratic votes turn out today on Election Day, and I think we are likely to have a Harris win, though we may have to wait a couple days to find out.
I think we're going to have to wait a few days to find out no matter who wins. And Roma, I'm curious, though, as to your thoughts on kind of what Christina said there about Donald Trump's closing messages. He kind of described it to our John Carl, the way he addresses his crowds, as doing this weave. He feels as if it's really effective, although we have heard a lot of top Republicans say, no, focus on the issue that millions of Americans care about, especially in these closing days.
Well, President Trump has very long speeches at his rallies because there's a lot of issues to tackle right now. The American people are hurting across the board when it comes to everything from grocery prices to making sure that their children are safe in school, like I said earlier. So, of course, it's going to be a lengthy speech that's covering a wide range of issues. One thing that we don't hear from Kamala Harris is the specifics. And that's something that is very well known with President Trump's agenda on any policy at hand. So I will also say she has not just had 3 months to campaign. She has had 4 years. So if the American people don't realize that, then they haven't been paying attention. And I believe that most of them have, which is why you still hear people saying her message is not clear. What is her policy stance? And the only thing that we're getting from her is that her values haven't changed. That's not a policy agenda. So, the question is going to be, is Kamala Harris walking this fine line in order to keep both sides happy? And will that work? I don't believe it will. The American people are struggling. They want specifics. They want someone who's going to come out, tell them like it is. And we all know that that's what President Trump does. Whether you like what he's saying or not, he's going to be straightforward with you. He'll tell you exactly what his plan is, how he's going to do it, when he's going to do it. And as far as an enemies list goes, I'll tell you who's on his enemy list: China, Russia, and Iran. He's going to make the world a safer place.
All right, Roma Daravi and Christina Sinton Ramirez, it's always a pleasure to speak with you both. Thank you for being here. And we have a lot more special coverage ahead of Election Night in America and this historic race for the White House. Stay with us.
Friday night, a firefighter gunned down in his own driveway. 2020 takes you inside a true crime as it unfolds.
It's not supposed to be this way.
Never before seen video.
My mom, she was freaking out.
Exclusive interviews.
Every step was shocking.
And the twists and turns.
Just when you thought you heard the most shocking part,
you'll never see coming.
There was another part.
Fire and Vice. The all-new 2020 Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC. Election Day finally here, and more Americans turn to David Muir in World News Tonight than any other newscast. The race, a dead heat with so much at stake. Turn to David Muir and the team this election night. ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir, the #1 newscast in America.
3, 2, 1.
It's a 24/7 life together.
It's not about the fear or the risk. It's about the love of flying. 3, 2, 1.
We shared a strange, unusual experience, but seeing you here tonight just opens my heart up again.
Welcome to the very first ever Golden Bachelorette Men Tell All.
I didn't expect to be that famous.
I love these guys. They're friends for life.
We all came looking for love with Joan, but we got this, which is incredible, really.
Election night, this is where America turns for answers. ABC Election Night.
From the 2024 campaign trail here in Des Moines, Iowa, I'm Rachel Scott. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
All right, welcome back to ABC's special Election Day coverage of the state of Georgia now. We go to this key battleground state. It turned blue for the first time in decades in the last presidential race. And ABC News' Faith Abube is live for us in Atlanta. So, Faith, we know that both Vice President Harris and former President Trump made a point to visit Georgia several times over the course of their campaigns. What are you hearing as you speak with voters today?
And Kana, it wasn't just the running, the top of the ticket, right? It was their running mates as well, right down to the last few hours before polls opened today. We had Vance here yesterday, back-to-back major rallies. We saw Tim Walz. We also saw Harris and Trump, all within a few days before the polls opened today. So the message, the final message that they were delivering to voters really, was something that people here in Georgia took very seriously. We saw the early voting numbers, more than 4 million people, record-shattering. A number of people came out to vote, and today we're seeing a trickle of voters, but they expect by the end of the day that this will actually shatter records as well. But why are they coming out? This is some of the things that we were talking to voters about today, and here's what some of them had to say. Take a listen.
Everybody wanted to get it out of the way because they want to sit home and doom scroll. That's not me. I wanted to be involved in the moment.
I have kids, so when I'm dead and gone, I'm hoping that my decision today will help them in the future.
I am hoping and praying that Georgia turns blue again. It did it before, and I feel like people are going to do it. They've been calling, they've been having advertisement going on, they've been having events all over the city, all over Georgia.
We're hearing about the economy. We're hearing about reproductive rights. We're hearing just a whole bunch of issues, the same issues that are affecting a lot of people across the country. That is why these voters say they come out. The common experience among a lot of the voters we've seen here in Georgia is the fact that they haven't seen any lines here. The lines have been going really quickly. They go in within 2 minutes, they're done, which is in stark contrast to what we saw just 4 years ago during the last election during COVID. There were people waiting in line for hours and hours. Today, none of that happening so far, and so state officials say this is a success so far as they can tell.
Interesting. And also, Faith, we know that it was just yesterday, right? Georgia's highest court decided that thousands of these voters in Georgia's third largest county who got their absentee ballots late won't be getting an extension to return to them. So, Faith, what do we know about what that could mean now for this crucial battleground state?
Yeah, this affects about just over 3,000 voters. And of course, it's a county that Joe Biden flipped last time around. He was able to win that county. And of course, this is a state that Biden won with fewer than 12,000 votes. So every vote counts, right? And so a lot of the advocacy groups, a lot of the civil rights groups, they're very disappointed in this because a lot of the people who were supposed to send in their absentee ballots, they can't just walk in today and vote because perhaps they live out of state. So they feel like some voters will be disenfranchised. We'll see exactly what effect this has. State officials are hoping that a lot of people show up, and so the margins are wide enough that those specific votes won't actually affect the total or who wins here in the state of Georgia, but certainly there are advocacy groups who are very disappointed in that decision. Kana?
Absolutely, because with a race so tight, that could be a lot of votes there one way or the other. Faith Abube, thank you so much for being here with us. And we know the last polls from the battleground state of Wisconsin show a true toss-up there. Now, the state had been reliably Democratic since 1988. Wisconsin went to Donald Trump, though, in 2016 by 0.7%. Then it swung back to Joe Biden in 2020 by the same margin. So inside Kenosha City Hall, where election workers are processing absentee ballots specifically, is our reporter Liz Nagy from our Chicago partner station WLS. So Liz, thanks for being here with us. And how does Wisconsin actually process those absentee ballots, and how might it affect when we will know who wins the state?
Okay, now we're going to show you this entire process here. We are on the second floor of Kenosha City Hall, which is closed for business today. It has entirely been taken over by absentee ballot processing. This is a combination of city workers and poll workers who are doing all of that work here today. And this is important here on Election Day because in Wisconsin, you cannot begin processing ballots until Election Day. Many of these ballots may have come in the mail in the past couple of days, the past couple of weeks, but they cannot be opened or counted until Election Day. So they've been doing this since 7:30 this morning. You can see there's a row of tables here, 2 people per table, and it's a 3-step process. It's pretty specific. Out loud, they must, by state law, they must read the name and the address out loud as they take a look at this. Each person is assigned a number. Then they open the envelopes, take out the ballots, and separate it. That's step 2. You can see that's happening at every single one of these tables. And then this is where it really gets serious. We're going to show you the machines over here. This is step 3. This is where all of the ballots are loaded into the machines. This has been going on all day long, and they're moving at a pretty good clip. So far, they've had 22,356 absentee ballots returned, and they have processed and counted 7,534 of those. Now, we've been keeping track over the past few hours. They seem to be doing it about 1,500 votes or so per hour. Here's another thing in the state of Wisconsin. Once they start that counting of absentee ballots, they cannot stop. So they will be doing this all night long. People can return those absentee ballots in person until 8 p.m. tonight when the polls close. And people are still showing up here at Kenosha City Hall. You mentioned that Donald Trump won Wisconsin narrowly. A lot of that happened here in Kenosha County. Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016 here in Kenosha County by the narrowest margin of any county in the state of Wisconsin. Also, one other thing I want to point out to you, there are independent poll observers that are here that we've been speaking to. 5 from the Republican Party, 5 from the Democratic Party, and 5 independents here watching the process. Now, they won't talk to us on camera, but we have been able to have a few conversations with them, and they say based on everything that they have seen, they have full confidence in this process. We have been seeing people voting in person. They have had huge voter turnout at a lot of these places in person, even in the middle of the day when things are typically slow. We talked to a couple voters at a few different polling spots around Wisconsin. Here's what they had to say about who they voted for.
I am actually from Puerto Rico, so I was very hurt by the comments that were made. So I was very undecisive before that. And after that comment, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done thinking about it, so.
That Madison Square Garden joke sealed your vote?
Yes, it did, actually. I don't care what people say about it. I am confident that a woman needs to be up there also, and changes need to happen, and hatred needs to stop.
For me, looking at the economy and some of the things that have gone on these last 4 years that I just don't agree with, that I think as a country we need to get back together, and I think he's the one that's going to be able to do it.
Now, those are just two of the voters we spoke to at one Wisconsin polling place, but I have to say it's been pretty evenly divided everywhere we've gone, and everyone we've spoken to. We have seen a lot of new voters show up voting for the first time, so that could be crucial here. A lot of women showing up, but this is going to be the place where these votes are counted in the city of Kenosha. We don't know how long that's going to take. Last time around, it took until Wednesday, so election officials here are expecting that could be the case again. Kana?
Wow, Liz Nagy highlighting one of the tightest counties and perhaps the tightest race in the country. That's also interesting, and the dedication of those poll workers. We appreciate you, Liz, from our Chicago ABC station WLS. All right, we have a lot more special coverage ahead here on ABC News Live. Voters across this nation decide whether Donald Trump or Kamala Harris should be our country's next president. Straight ahead.
Yo, partner.
We're not partners. I'm the detective and you are the consultant. I see you brought your baby to a crime scene.
She is just spectating.
You're a single mom with 3 kids pretending to be a cop.
I am not pretending.
I spot things that detectives miss. Still think my theory's flimsy?
That big brain of hers is going to help us close a lot of cases.
I'm just out here super copping.
High Potential, all new next Tuesday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Hollywood Studios want us to make a movie of our podcast.
It's a fabulous cast.
Action. I'm nervous playing you. The fearlessness, the complexity.
Oh, stop. Unless you had more to say.
I don't need an algorithm to tell me that this is box office gold.
Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and for bundle subscribers on Disney+.
True natural beauty, untouched, one of the last of its kind. But this comes at a cost. 5 countries, 5 incredible real stories of adventure, danger,
We have to go.
and deceit. These are the last lands, the national parks around the world that have to be saved.
Hey, good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America.
Are you ready? They are ready. Covering the biggest events in the country right now.
There's a lot going on here this morning.
You don't just see it, you feel it.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in too.
I'll be there.
I am here and so happy.
I'm in.
I'm in too.
Michael, George, Clara,
Ginger.
And welcome back to ABC News Live, Election Day coverage here. And it is very plausible that Pennsylvania is the key to clinching the presidency in this election. Officials there were not allowed to even open the 1.7 million early votes until this morning. And in those big urban areas like Philadelphia, they say they will count the votes all through the night, and it's going to be a very late night, as you can imagine. So I'm going to bring in our ABC News chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, who's live for us in Philadelphia. And Matt, I'm so happy to have you with us. I'm happy to ask you the loaded question of when can we expect that count to be finalized? And I think it's top of mind for everyone, as you know, because we saw those huge delays in 2020. So what are officials saying?
Kana, I think that is the best question. It's $1 million question. It's the question we've been asking every single official, and they keep telling us the same thing. Well, we're not quite sure. There are a couple of rough parameters. I'll get to that in one sec. First, to start to what you just referred to, it took 5 days to completely tabulate the vote in 2020, and there were a couple of reasons for that. First is there was a deluge of mail-in ballots. It was the first time that the state actually did it. It was also COVID, so there were a significant a number of restrictions on the poll counters and the elections officials. This time, it's different. The rules regulating how they count and when they begin are the same. They still were not allowed to begin opening those envelopes until 7 a.m. today. Tabulation begins after 8 p.m. But they are now allowed, they have increased the number of machinery, they increased the number of staff, and every county in this state has committed to continuing the count round the clock through the night until they are completed. They cannot stop once they start. So they have multiple rotating teams for